Hello there. Come in. Take the weight off. Welcome to Homemade Audiobooks, the coziest corner of YouTube, a nest where you can settle down, turn the lights low, shut your peepers, and listen in to my homemade narrations of some of my favourite ever tales. These will be slightly over-the-top readings, with silly voices, accents aplenty, and a whole myriad of sound effects, all intended to give you the most immersive experience possible. What's better than reading? Well, listening to someone read to you. If you're enjoying my creations, then head over to Patreon to support my efforts. It would mean ever so much. For now, though, let's head off to 1960s New York and the Gothic splendour of the Branford Building. It's time for Ira Levin's legendary horror yarn, Rosemary's Baby. Rosemary's Baby, written by Ira Levin, read by Homemade Audiobooks. Part 2, Chapter 8. Dr. Saperstein was amazed.
Fantastic, he said. Absolutely fantastic. What did you say the name was? Mercado?
Marcardo, Rosemary said.
Fantastic, Dr. Saperstein said. I had no idea whatsoever. I think he told me once that his father was a coffee importer. Yes, I remember him going on about different grades and different ways of grinding the beans.
He told Guy that he was a producer. Dr. Saperstein shook his head.
It's no wonder he's ashamed of the truth, he said. And it's no wonder that you're upset at having discovered it. I'm as sure as I am of anything on earth that Roman doesn't hold any of his father's weird beliefs, but I can't understand completely how disturbed you must have been to have him as a close neighbor.
I don't want anything more to do with him or Minnie, Rosemary said. Maybe I'm being unfair, but I don't want to take even the slightest chance where the baby's safety is concerned.
Absolutely, Dr. Saperstein said. Any mother would feel the same way.
Rosemary leaned forward. Is there any chance at all, she said, that Minnie put something harmful in the drink or in those little cakes? Dr. Saperstein laughed.
I'm sorry, dear, he said. I don't mean to laugh, but really, she's such a kind old woman and so concerned for the baby's well-being. No, there's no chance at all that she gave you anything harmful. I would have seen evidence of it a long time ago, in you or in the baby.
I called her on the house phone and told her I wasn't feeling well. I won't take anything else from her.
You won't have to, Dr. Saperstein said. I can give you some pills that will be more than adequate in these last few weeks. In a way, this may be the answer to Minnie and Roman's problem too.
What do you mean? Rosemary said.
They want to go away, Dr. Saperstein said. And rather soon. Roman isn't well, you know. In fact, and in the strictest of confidence, he hasn't got more than a month or two left in him. He wants to pay a last visit to a few of his favorite cities, and they were afraid you might take offense at their leaving on the eve of the baby's birth, so to speak. They broached the subject to me the night before last, wanted to know how I thought you would take it. They don't want to upset you by telling you the real reason for the trip.
I'm sorry to hear that Roman isn't well, Rosemary said.
But glad at the prospect of his leaving, Dr. Saperstein smiled. A perfectly reasonable reaction, he said, all things considered. Suppose we do this, Rosemary. I'll tell them that I've sounded you out and you aren't at all offended by the idea of their going, and until they do go, they mention Sunday as a possibility. You continue as before, not letting Roman know that you've learned his true identity. I'm sure he would be embarrassed and unhappy if he knew, and it seems a shame to upset him when it's only a matter of 3 or 4 more days.
Rosemary was silent for a moment, and then she said, Are you sure they'll be leaving on Sunday?
I know they'd like to, Dr. Saperstein said.
Rosemary considered. "All right," she said. "I'll go on as before, but only until Sunday."
"If you'd like," Dr. Saperstein said, "I can have those pills sent over to you tomorrow morning. You can get Minnie to leave the drink and the cake with you and throw them away and take a pill instead."
"That would be wonderful," Rosemary said. "I'd be much happier that way."
"That's the main thing at this stage," Dr. Saperstein said. "Keeping you happy."
Rosemary smiled. "If it's a boy," she said, "I may just name him Abraham Saperstein Woodhouse."
"God forbid," Dr. Saperstein said.
Guy, when he heard the news, was as pleased as Rosemary.
"I'm sorry Roman is on his last lap," he said, "but I'm glad for your sake that they're going away. I'm sure you'll feel much more relaxed now."
"Oh, I will," Rosemary said. "I feel better already, just knowing about it." Apparently, Dr. Saperstein didn't waste any time in telling Roman about Rosemary's supposed feelings, for that same evening, Minnie and Roman stopped by and broke the news that they were going to Europe.
"Sunday morning at 10, Roman said. "We fly directly to Paris, where we'll stay for a week or so, and then we'll go on to Zurich, Venice, and the loveliest city in all of the world, Dubrovnik, in Yugoslavia."
"I'm green with envy," Guy said.
Roman said to Rosemary,
"I gather this doesn't come as a complete bolt from the blue, does it, my dear?"
A conspirator's gleam winked from his deep-socketed eyes. "Dr. Saperstein mentioned you were thinking of going," Rosemary said. Minnie said, "We'd have loved to stay till the baby came." "You'd be foolish to," Rosemary said, "now that the hot weather is here."
"We'll send you all kinds of pictures," Guy said.
"But when Roman gets the wanderlust," Minnie said, "there's just no holding him."
It's true, Roman said. "After a lifetime of traveling, I find it all but impossible to stay in one city for more than a year. And it's been 14 months now since we came back from Japan and the Philippines."
He told them about Dubrovnik's special charms, and Madrid's, and the Isle of Skies. Rosemary watched him, wondering which he really was, an amiable old talker or the mad son of a mad father. The next day, Minnie made no fuss at all about leaving the drink and the cake. She was on her way out with a long list of going-away jobs to do. Rosemary offered to pick up a dress at the cleaner's for her and buy toothpaste and Dramamine. When she threw away the drink and the cake and took one of the large white capsules Dr. Saperstein had sent, she felt just the slightest bit ridiculous. On Saturday morning, Minnie said,
"You know, don't you, about who Roman's father was?"
Rosemary nodded, surprised.
"I could tell by the way you turned sort of cool to us." Minnie said, "Oh, don't apologize, dear. You're not the first, and you won't be the last. And I can't say that I really blame you. Oh, I could kill that crazy old man if he wasn't dead already. He's been the bane in poor Roman's existence. That's why he likes to travel so much. He always wants to leave a place before people can find out who he is. Don't let on to him that you know, will you? He's so fond of you and Guy, it would near about break his heart. I wanted him to have a real happy trip with no sorrows, because there aren't likely to be many more. Trips, I mean. Would you like the perishables in my icebox? Send Guy over later and I'll load him up."
Laura Louise gave a bon voyage party Saturday night in her small, dark, tannis-smelling apartment on the 12th floor. The Weeses and the Gilmores came, and Mrs. Sabatini with her cat Flash, and Dr. Shand. How had Guy known that it was Dr. Shand who played the recorder, Rosemary wondered, and that it was a recorder, not a flute or a clarinet? She would have to ask him. Roman told of his and Minnie's planned itinerary, surprising Mrs. Sabatini, who couldn't believe they were bypassing Rome and Florence. Laura Louise served homemade cookies and a mildly alcoholic fruit punch. Conversation turned to tornadoes and civil rights. Rosemary, watching and listening to these people, who were much like her aunts and uncles in Omaha, found it hard to maintain her belief that they were, in fact, a coven of witches. Little Mr. Weese, listening to Guy talking about Martin Luther King. Could such a feeble old man, even in his dreams, imagine himself a caster of spells, a maker of charms? And dowdy old women like Laura Louise and Minnie and Helen Weese, could they really bring themselves to cavort naked in mock religious orgies? Yet hadn't she seen them that way? Seen all of them naked? No, that was a dream. A wild dream that she'd had a long, long time ago. The Fountains phoned a goodbye to Minnie and Roman, and so did Dr. Saperstein and 2 or 3 other people whose names Rosemary didn't know. Laura Louise brought out a gift that everyone had chipped in for, a transistor radio in a pigskin carrying case, and Roman accepted it with an eloquent thank you speech, his voice breaking. He knows he's going to die, Rosemary thought, and was genuinely sorry for him. Guy insisted on lending a hand the next morning, despite Roman's protests. He set the alarm clock for 8:30 and, when it went off, hopped into chinos and a T-shirt and went around to Minnie and Roman's door. Rosemary went with him in her peppermint striped smock. There was little to carry, 2 suitcases and a hat box. Minnie wore a camera and Roman his new radio.
Anyone who needs more than one suitcase,
he said as he double-locked their door,
is a tourist, not a traveller.
On the sidewalk, while the doorman blew his whistle at oncoming cars, Roman checked through tickets, passport, traveller's checks and French currency. Minnie took Rosemary by the shoulders.
No matter where we are, she said, our thoughts are going to be with you every minute, darling, till you're all happy and thin again with your sweet little boy or girl lying safe in your arms.
Thank you, Rosemary said, and kissed Minnie's cheek. Thank you for everything.
You make Guy send us lots of pictures, you hear?
Minnie said, kissing Rosemary back. I will, Rosemary said. Minnie turned to Guy. Roman took Rosemary's hand.
I won't wish you luck, he said, because you won't need it. You're going to have a happy, happy life.
She kissed him. Have a wonderful trip, she said, and come back safely.
Perhaps,
he said, smiling.
But I may stay on in Dubrovnik, or Pescar, or maybe Majorca. We shall see. We shall see.
Come back, Rosemary said, and found herself meaning it. She kissed him again. A taxi came. Guy and the doorman stowed the suitcases beside the driver. Minnie shouldered and grunted her way in, sweating under the arms of her white dress. Roman folded himself in beside her.
Kennedy Airport,
he said.
The TWA building.
There were more goodbyes and kisses through open windows, and then Rosemary and Guy stood waving at the taxi that sped away with hands ungloved and white-gloved waving from either side of it. Rosemary felt less happy than she had expected. That afternoon, she looked for All of Them Witches to reread parts of it and perhaps find it foolish and laughable. The book was gone. It wasn't atop the Kinsey reports or anywhere else that she could see. She asked Guy, and he told her that he had put it in the garbage Thursday morning.
I'm sorry, honey, he said, but I just didn't want you reading any more of that stuff and upsetting yourself.
She was surprised and annoyed. Guy, she said, Hutch gave me that book. He left it to me.
I didn't think about that part of it, Guy said. I just didn't want you upsetting yourself. I'm sorry.
That's a terrible thing to do.
I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking about Hutch.
Even if he hadn't given it to me, you don't throw away another person's books. If I want to read something, I want to read it.
I'm sorry, he said.
It bothered her all day long, and she had forgotten something that she meant to ask him. That bothered her too. She remembered it in the evening, while they were walking back from La Scala, a restaurant not far from the house. How did you know Dr. Shand placed the recorder? She said. He didn't understand. The other day, she said, when I read the book and we argued about it, you said that Dr. Shand just happened to play the recorder. How did you know?
Oh, Guy said. He told me a long time ago. And I said we'd heard a flute or something through the wall once or twice, and he said that was him. How did you think I knew?
I didn't think, Rosemary said. I just wondered, that's all. She couldn't sleep. She lay awake on her back and frowned at the ceiling. The baby inside her was sleeping fine, but she couldn't. She felt unsettled and worried without knowing what she was worried about. Well, the baby, of course, and whether everything would go the way it should. She had cheated on her exercises lately. No more of that, solemn promise. It was really Monday already, the 13th. 15 more days, 2 weeks. Probably all women felt edgy and unsettled 2 weeks before. and couldn't sleep from being sick and tired of sleeping on their backs. The first thing she was going to do after it all was to sleep 24 solid hours on her stomach, hugging a pillow with her face snuggled deep down into it. She heard a sound in Minnie and Roman's apartment, but it must have been from the floor above or the floor below. Sounds were masked and confused with the air conditioner going. They were in Paris already. Lucky them. Someday she and Guy would go with their 3 lovely children. The baby woke up and began moving.